How badly do you think the
crisis... It's a matter of political will.
How badly do you think the political crisis in the ruling party is hurting the nation?
Beg your pardon?
The political crisis in the APC, the ruling party, how badly do you think it's hurting the nation?
Again, when you operate a political system that does not place premium on the interests of the people, a political system that does not make the people the center of development, you cannot but have crisis. And I also would like to appeal to Nigerians to appreciate that when you are talking of political crisis in political parties, you must find out how are these parties, whether the ruling party or the opposition political parties, are responding to the immediate needs of our people. In what way has the government of change effected change in the lives of our people? That is the question out there. Now, the average Nigerian is asking whether his quality of life or her quality of life is better now than it was last year. And that is what should concern the government. You are talking of intra-class feuds in political parties. That shouldn't really be the business of Nigerians. The generality of our people, the young people are looking for jobs in the midst of mass unemployment. The ordinary people who want to travel on our roads without any fear of being mowed down by night marauders or armed robbers. People want to go to the hospitals and have treatment. Those are the questions, and of course, the ordinary Nigerians want to educate their children. They want their children to acquire education, and they want a future for their children. So if political parties are members of or leaders of political parties are engaged in fighting, that shouldn't waste. That's normal. But in a rat race, I mean, a dog-eat-dog affair. What do you expect?
But do we need such a feud at this time? It's a very critical time in our history.
No, you cannot but have. You must understand that the way these parties are run, which is normally devoid of democratic practice. The parties, political parties you are talking about, are totally opposed to democratic practice. Members read about developments in the party like you and I. Since the election was concluded last year, which of the parties, which of them has really brought the people together to explain their programs and policies and ideas to the electorate? No. Until 4 years' time,
you see them
they're not going to dance around, you know. So if you are talking of a political party that has an organic link with the masses, with the people, policies of government are explained, or the policies of the opposition are explained to the people. The people are mobilized to take their destiny in their own hands. But this top-bottom approach to politics and development cannot move any nation forward. So if you are talking about you are detaining yourself or you are wasting your time over who guess what in these political parties, I'm not really interested.
The budget has stayed with the president for about a week now. And he has, by law, he has about 30 days to sign because before the legislature or some natural cause comes upon that budget. But as it stands now, what do you think he should be looking into and what can he be doing right now concerning that document?
The president has said, and I'm not sure he can be faulted on this point, that he would like to scrutinize what has been sent to him with a view to finding out whether what has been passed, right, was the document sent to the National Assembly. Even some members of the National Assembly are saying that they are not aware of the details of the budget. So that calls for a proper review of the entire document. Again, very embarrassing for us as a people. If the executive cannot trust the legislature, that a thorough job will have been done to the budget, you know, I think it's unfortunate.
Let's talk about the China trip. We've heard what Mr. Additional told us, 6 billion in terms of investment gains. That's what President Buhari and his team were able to garner from that trip. Is that impressive?
Well, having regard to the experience of the country and the several trips the president has made, I think this is the most productive, you know, going by, you know, the agreement. I do hope, because there have been previous agreements, I do hope that the president will ensure that the agreements are actualized. Because if they are not actualized, as was the case with the previous regime, the trip will have achieved nothing for the country. But I do hope, because of the nature of the agreements and the contents of the agreement, I do hope that the government cannot afford not to fulfill its own part of the agreement. I think the one that Mr. Adesina did not mention, which I think is the most important, is the agreement to trade the naira for the yuan.
Yeah.
You know, I think that is the most interesting aspect of the agreement. If both sides are faithful to that aspect of the agreement, this currency exchange, you know.
You think that will change the face of our economy in any way?
It should, because almost 70% of goods coming to the country now come through China. If you can then spend naira in China, and China can also buy our oil, you know, by paying yuan, I think it's going to have an impact on the dollar.
A lot of people have criticized President Buhari's government as not having an economic direction. Does it look now that it does?
Again, it depends on what you mean by economic direction. Those who are saying that, I can tell you, neoliberal elements in our midst who will have wanted the regime to remove his hands completely in the business of the country. I mean, what they call, I mean, you are being told by neoliberal people that government has no business in business. They just simply want the country thrown to
the private sector.
Completely. And again, it depends on what you mean by the private sector in Nigeria. Can you really say that you have a private sector that lives on duty waivers, contracts, and sale of the country's assets in the name of privatization? Can you really call that a political class? It's a compradorian, you know, bourgeois class that does not even know its own interest, how to protect its own interest. So you can't call that a private sector. A private sector is one that will inject funds into the economy, but not a parasitic sector that relies virtually on the government in terms of collecting assets from the government and stripping those assets of content. That's not a private sector. So the government in this part of the world has to play a dominant role in the economy. And that is what these guys are saying. No. You just must hand the economy over to you know, imperialist interests and the local lackeys. That's what they mean by, oh, this government has no economic agenda. What agenda are they talking about?
So the president...
in other words, this regime, as far as I'm concerned, has not significantly departed from the economy program of the previous regime. Nothing.
The president on his inauguration has said that he was going to fight corruption. But do you think he's doing that?
Well, in terms of verbalization, I think the government has made it clear that it's fighting corruption. Initially, we were told that the government was going to fight corruption and impunity. We only talk of corruption these days because a lot of impunity is going on.
In government, right now?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
I mean, what would you like to give us examples of that, Mr. Falana?
When you are told in an independent African country that 347 people were killed and buried secretly in a mass grave, that for me is the height of impunity. Only a colonial regime can treat its people, a people, so contemptuously. Or you are also told, oh, we just found 55 shallow graves, and out of the 55 people, bodies that were buried, 5 of them belong to one part of the country or whatever. What point were you trying to make? To incite people to attack themselves? Did you carry out a DNA test? And extrajudicial killings are going on in the country.